Remember those 3 cell phones on the Irwin's kitchen counter taken the night that Lisa was? 2 of them had restrictions for non-payment, but right near midnight, there was an attempted phone call from the one phone that worked. It was to a cell phone that was less than a mile away, and it lasted 50 seconds. So what did the cops say to you about that piece of evidence? Lisa's father, Jeremy Irwin.
So they told me that there was a phone call from one of Deborah's phones, and we were able to get the records from that phone line. Went back over 3 years, and I myself, hand by hand, went over every number in the whole thing. And that was the first time in which that number had ever popped up.
I mean, and that's our best lead. Law enforcement went right to work on tracing that call. It went to a phone that belonged to Megan Wright. Yes, the same Megan Wright who had recently split up with Jersey, aka John Tanko.
Now I'm learning that mystery phone call was made to the handyman's ex-girlfriend.
We told you last week about that phone call. It was placed to a phone belonging to a woman named Megan Wright.
How much contact did you have with Jersey on the day or the evening that baby Lisa went missing? Megan Wright.
None. He and I hadn't been together for over a month at that point. And I had seen him and spoke to him prior to that, but nothing on the day of.
Megan was 20 at that time and had moved to Kansas City earlier that year. She told us she had been in an abusive relationship, left it, lived for a time at a domestic violence shelter, and after that was moving from group home to group home, temporary living situations. She says she met Tanko at one of them.
It was probably 2 months into us meeting and hanging out together that I learned that he was bringing drugs to that house to the other people that lived there. And that's when I was invited to snort a line of meth for the first time. And I did. That was the first time I'd ever done it. And I was at this horrible point in my life and drinking too much pretty much every day. Not the best of decisions, but it wasn't a far step from where I was at. So that was the first time I ever got high on anything. You know what I mean? It was a life-changing experience that I never saw coming for myself.
By the time of Lisa's disappearance, Megan had become a full-on methamphetamine addict and was trying to stay away from Tanko. The very last time she saw him, Megan says Tanko scared her.
The last time was when he had the van and almost hit the porch. He aggressively left the road, drove into the grass of the yard, and almost clipped the porch as he parked the van to run up the stairs to try and get in the house to get me. That's the last time that I had any type of contact with him. And like I said, it was from 20 feet away with 4 or 5 people in between us that we had any contact.
And this is prior to Lisa's disappearance?
Yes.
Megan moved to a house on 44th and Brighton, a little over a mile away from the Irwin house.
I had moved there in fear of John, because he kept coming back to that house where I had originally met him, where I was living at the time. He would not leave me alone after I broke up with him.
By her account, it was a trap house, a drug den, and her contribution to the household was to let people use her phone.
Living in a trap house, what you can provide is everything. Like I said, having the phone and paying the bill every month, that was one thing I could provide to everybody in the house. Now everybody has access to a cell phone with internet. When you're desperate and you're 20 years old and you're just trying not to die, you'll do anything to stay anywhere that's not outside, which is where the only place I had to go.
Well, why would anyone involved in the disappearance of baby Lisa call your cell phone the night baby Lisa went missing?
I have no idea. It's hard for me to say. I had only had that number. It was like a Verizon prepaid phone for about 6 months. I still got calls for other people, whoever had the number prior. There were several people that used my phone in the house that I lived in on a regular basis, so there would be calls coming in for those people.
On the night Lisa went missing, October 3rd, Megyn says she left her phone on an upstairs table.
I was in that house in the basement getting high in the very early morning hours of October 3rd for the last time of my life. So I know exactly where I was at. After I left there, it was probably 3:30 or so in the morning. I went to Waffle House with one of the girls that was getting high with me at the house there.
Okay. And so you left that house, but you left your cell phone behind at the drug house.
Yes. I left my
Okay.
phone there, and there were people that were using it throughout the evening. So we had dinner or breakfast, whatever. Went to Walmart, did our shopping, checked out after food stamps hit at 6 in the morning. I probably got back to the house 7 or 8 in the morning. And that's when I was handed my phone that had been cleared of texts and call logs and told, hey, somebody said the FBI had called your phone. And I had no idea what was happening at that point. That's when I turned the news on and was able to see the broadcast of her missing.
Did you say who picked it up? Let me talk to the person who talked to the FBI.
That's what I said. I said, who had my phone? Who was using it? Who were they talking to?
At that time, Megyn says she was told that Dane Greathouse, a man staying in her same house that night, had her phone. And describe Dane for us.
I didn't know him very well. He had been, like I said, I was living at a trap house. He had been in and out for about a 2-week period prior to that day. So I had seen him. I had been kind of informally introduced to him, but we never really hung out together in the house.
How old would you say?
He was maybe a few years older than me at that point, 24, 25, I think.
A month after Lisa went missing, Dane had a text exchange with a Kansas City TV reporter and denied any connection with Megan Wright or the missing child. But he did say that he had used her phone.
I used Megan's cell phone to have my phone turned on and some rides lined up, Dane texted.
When our producer talked with him, Greathouse said he did not really know Megan Wright, but did confirm that they both stayed at the same house for a few nights, the house on 44th and Brighton. Greathouse said Megan did indeed share her phone with everyone there, and he told us he used her phone 3 times to make calls, but says he never once answered it. The public records only tell half the story.
I tried to get all those records to be preemptive about it, because if the FBI called my phone, I want to know why. That's not something that happens to anybody in their regular life.
Megan Wright tells us that terrible night for the Irwins was a big turning point in her life, too. She says the very next morning, she began to get her act together.
And I decided in that moment, never getting high again. So October 4th is my first day sober, 2011. I've been sober since.
About a week later, she says, the FBI brought her in for questioning.
So when it was a couple of days later at that point, the FBI stopped me and take me in for questioning. They connected all the dots and confirmed that they had attempted to call my phone on the evening of, because they had gotten the call records from the Irwin's phone, and they were just trying to call the number back immediately. That's why my phone was called.
What was your reaction when they told you?
I was terrified. Terrified. At this point, I was a week sober.
And once they were done asking her about her own possible involvement, they grilled her about her ex, Tanko.
He definitely knew my number by heart because he called me from multiple phones all the time. Like I said, when we were first talking, he didn't have a phone. He had just gotten out of jail, was living at the Honor Center, and was trying to get back on his feet. And then he was so devastated when I rejected him and left him and told him why. You're not the type of man I can have family with, and that's what I want in my life. And I don't know if the way I delivered it or the circumstances surrounding our breakup or if drugs had anything to do with it on his part at that point, but he just revolted. Everything in him hated me after that. And the more that I told him, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to see you, don't come around here, we're not getting back together. It just was so constant with him until I left the city.
Did you know that he was a burglar?
And at the time, no. seen his arrest reports and stuff since I broke up and have learned a lot more about him.
What month was the breakup in 2011?
It was after Easter that year. I want to say it was like May or June, before the 4th of July, because I didn't end
Okay.
up going to my family's 4th of July party that year because I was upset about the breakup.
Okay. And do you have any reason to believe he stopped using meth at any point in 2011?
I have no idea. Like I said, after I broke up with him, I tried my very best not to have contact with him, especially in person, because he made me incredibly nervous. I have a lot of PTSD from the things that he put me through that I've tried really hard to work through over the years. But there's a lot of it I can't let go of. I can't forget being that afraid.
Were you thinking, this guy's kind of crazy? Could have been him.
Yes, I definitely thought this guy is crazy and that he was horrible to me, traumatized me. But I have no idea what he's capable of.
Again, reporter Jim Spellman.
I think if you start to look past the family, it's likely that it's somebody who at least knew the neighborhood to know that this baby was in this house. And so he's somebody that absolutely is top of mind. If not a suspect, because he's another person that the police said that they moved on from, that perhaps somebody in his world might know something more.
The phones and the phone use continued to be a mystery. At 3:17 a.m., one of the phones tried to access voicemail. Now, why would that be? 5 minutes later, at 3:22 a.m., there was an attempt to use the phone's web browser. As I reported for Fox News back then, Deborah's attorney said there were 5 attempts made to get online via the phone, and the phones never got more than a third of a mile away from the house on North Lister. And remember this from our last episode. If it really was the same man with a baby that the Parscals and Mike Thompson saw that night, he would have spent nearly 4 hours within a 3-mile radius of baby Lisa's home. You would think, okay, let's see who's on the other end of that number. And that was Megan Wright's phone. So, okay, boom, we're off to the races. Megan Wright knows the abductor. Not that simple. Reporter Jim Spellman.
Not that simple at all. First off, I don't believe the police have released the full records of those phones involved. And I think that that is information that they have purposely withheld to be able to use to their advantage in their investigation. So we know that at least one of those phones was used to make at least one call to Megan Wright's phone.
You spoke with her a lot. Do you believe her claims that she did not have the phone when that number was dialed and that she had nothing to do with this?
I believe every single thing that Megan Wright told me within her ability to remember things. But I don't think that she was making up any of it. She was very helpful throughout the entire thing. If she tried to help us meet people, she would give us phone numbers of people. She never asked me for anything the whole time that we were doing this. And I think that she is exactly who she says she is. A troubled person, absolutely, but not somebody who had any direct involvement in this.
You don't go out and buy a life jacket when the boat is sinking, and you don't buy gold when the economy has already collapsed. Clearly, others are heeding this advice as gold hit all-time highs already this year. It's not too late for you, too, and you could have Birch Gold help you diversify into physical gold. Birch Gold specializes in helping you convert an existing IRA or 401k in whole or in part into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, and for no money out of pocket. One recent 5-star review said Birch Gold was, quote, knowledgeable, helpful, non-pressure. Get your free info kit on gold by texting the letters MK to the number 989898. There is no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, text MK to 989898 and let the experts at Birch Gold help you secure your future today with gold. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.